What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the Lenovo Thinkpad W550s. This is a workstation class machine as signified by the W in its title. However, it's a, thin version of them, or a more compact version of the workstation lineup that Lenovo has. This particular unit is another machine that I have saved from going to the landfill. All it needed was a new SSD and a bit of a RAM reseat, and it seems to be perfectly functional. However, it is a little bit dated spec-wise, especially in the more recent years here with the advent of Ryzen CPUs in laptops and things like that. This is really pretty behind the times as far as compute power goes, because this is, although it is rocking a Core i7, it is a dual core U-series Core i7. So it is a 15 watt part, the 6500U to be exact, which I believe is a 2.4 gigahertz base, like 3 point something boost CPU. So mediocre spec wise. However, for RAM, we've got 16 gigabytes of RAM. I believe this shipped with 8. I found another 8 gig stick and threw it in there. So we've got dual channel memory going on. Pretty basic CPU, but it also has a dedicated NVIDIA Quadro K620M GPU, which is also nothing to really write home about, but does allow us to do some basic acceleration for things in like video encoding in Premiere, which this does a fairly decent job with, as long as the particular video format you're using is supported by the hardware encoding. One of my cameras it works great with, the other one not so much, where my desktop it chews through everything. So there's a bit of flakiness with Premiere, plus it doesn't support the Intel HD graphics driver that this system uses, the HD 5500, I believe, graphics. It throws an error and you have to go in and kind of disable some of the warnings on that to get it to shut up. It does work, it's just a little on the flaky side. So bear that in mind. Anyway, so let's take a look at the hardware of this system. We'll go around some of the ports that we've got on the outside first, then we'll take a look at the inside, the layout, the keyboard, and have a look at the actual operating experience of the machine itself. So we have, much to my dismay, one of those rubberized coated lids, which they look really nice and snazzy when they're brand new, but they get cut up and beat up really fast. This one's in not too bad a condition. There's a few marks and some scuffs around the corners and things, which these always get. And unfortunately, being a rubberized coating, over time this will turn into a horrible sticky goo, which isn't a big deal within the normal lifespan of these machines, but if you're like me, and you collect old computers, like really old computers, like 20 or 30-year-old. Some of the ThinkPads that I have are, like Windows 98 or earlier machines, 95 in a couple instances. Basically they've turned to a horrible sticky mess, the ones that have this coating on them, and it's not pleasant. They're just really disgusting to touch. So I fully expect that within a few years, this one will also start doing the same thing. It hasn't started yet, thankfully, but that just seems to be the curse of the ThinkPad. So popping around to the left side of the machine here, we've got our power input jack here. It's one of those weird square style that Lenovo loves to use so much. We've got a USB 3 port, which is black inside instead of blue, which I actually like that. I think it looks much better. We have an old school VGA port, which is actually kind of useful. So if you need to hook it up to a projector or something, that's what that's there for. Being a business laptop, that makes sense to carry that sort of feature over. Headphone microphone combo jack. We've got a SD card reader, full-sized Ethernet jack, and a smart card reader. Again, definitely a business class laptop. That wouldn't be something you'd find on a consumer machine, that is for sure. Onto the other side, we've got an additional 2 USB 3 ports. There are no USB 2 ports on the system, so make of that what you will. The left one here has a charging function, so even when the machine is off or in sleep, it can still charge other devices via that port. We've got a mini display port out, which is very nice, and we have our cooling vent along with a Kensington lock slot. Round back, we have our battery and a whole lot of nothing else. This is a removable external battery, however, it does also have the option of a non-removable internal battery. Well, it is removable, but a non-user serviceable or easily removable battery. We won't be getting into that too much because I have an upgrade planned. I've actually ordered an internal battery for this because this one's not populated with that. Round front, we got absolutely nothing except for a drain port, which is kind of neat. So something else to note with this thing, these machines are fairly rugged, and they're actually designed so if you spill something into the keyboard, instead of it destroying the entire machine, it drains through the keyboard mechanism and out several different little ports on the bottom. So there is a drain hole there and there. I think that's it. So yeah, 2 different drain spots for it. So all your fluids should run down through the keyboard and then out through those holes. On the bottom, we also have our docking connector here, which is very nice that this actually still supports docking. And I also have one of those on order for it as well. That'll be in a future video here. So, opening the machine up. This machine here has a 1920 by 1080 display. However, it was also available with a 3K display, which was a touchscreen. This one doesn't have that. I think I actually prefer the 1920 by 1080 display just because it's a little easier for the GPU to drive. And at this, I believe it's a 15.6 inch form factor. That's more than adequate enough. We have a full-size keyboard, including numpad, which is lovely. This is the newer style Lenovo design keyboard, so it's not your old school ThinkPad type keyboard. However, I actually really like this chiclet keyboard. I think these are about the second best laptop keyboards currently made. Well, I say currently made, but about my second favorite laptop keyboard out there. My favorite being off of the older MacBook Pros from like 2011, 2012, that sort of era with the longer key travel. I really like those. This actually feels very similar to that. The key layout is a little bit on the weird side, gotta admit. Like your control and function keys are swapped, can't stand that. It's got a weird set of kind of small function keys across the top. It's okay, you know, it's whatever. The keyboard layout is fine for productivity use. For gaming, you're going to be beating yourself over the head with this weird thing going on over here with the function and control keys. But aside from that, the keyboard feels really, really nice to type on. I love it. We have a fingerprint scanner, which is awesome. Supports Windows Hello. So as you probably saw, I logged in using the fingerprint sensor. Super easy in Windows 10 to pair it up with that. Our trackpad it's okay. It's not a bad trackpad. It does have a bit of a rattle problem where I don't know if you can hear that, but if you move it, if you have a lot of force on it and you slide up and down on it, it has a bit of a clunk to it. So that could just be my unit because it's, well, not the newest thing in the world. But it feels pretty responsive, decent to use. There's no dedicated left and right click buttons on the trackpad itself, but there are for the track point, which we'll get onto in a moment. But you can easily tap with 2 fingers to right click, which is fine. And you can right and left click down at the bottom like you would normally, which I don't mind that trackpad. It's really not bad. I think the little track point makes up for it. This is something I am very, very glad to see them still having installed on these, and I really hope they never get rid of them. Just personally, I love the track point or the nub or whatever the heck you want to call it. It's what I learned to use as a pointing device on a computer, so I'm very happy that that's still on some machines. And I think Lenovo, out of all the people that make these, Lenovo does it by far the best. The ones on Dells and HPs, they're just not as good. Just hands down not as good. So, okay, so what's this thing actually like to use? So, first things first, battery life. It's not bad. With the basic battery, it's actually, the one that's in here is kind of an extended battery. I believe it's a 47 watt hour pack. Mine is around 87-ish% capacity still. It gets me about 4 to 5 hours. So nothing spectacular, but nothing bad either. With the 15 watt CPU in here, it really does last quite a while, even under fairly heavy load. Now, as far as processing power goes, we're definitely not looking at like a desktop replacement class machine. This is still a bit underpowered for where I would like to be. However, general web browsing, perfectly fine, no problems there. I've done some light video editing in Premiere. The actual editing portion of it works fine. Maybe for larger projects it wouldn't exactly be the best thing in the world, but for basic video editing, this is more than adequate. The display is nice and bright. Let me actually bump up the brightness here a little bit on this. So I don't know if you can really tell. It looks to be flickering a bit on the camera, but I assure you that is just due to the refresh rate of the camera, and it is not doing that in real life. Yeah, the screen looks good. It's just a basic 1080p. I believe it's just a TN panel. It's nothing too special. Viewing angles are mediocre at best. Ooh boy, yeah, that really looks like it's flickering like crazy. YouTube playback is perfect. No problems here with anything up to even 4K. So no issue there. Pretty snappy overall. Opening up apps is nice and quick. I did install a 500 gig Kingston SSD in here, so that definitely helps with that matter, but it is just a basic SATA drive. There are also 2 M.2 slots on board. However, I believe they only operate in SATA mode. So you can potentially install up to 3 storage devices in here, which is pretty darn cool if you ask me. So I know I said this machine was not meant for gaming. However, I know if I don't test some gaming on it, people will inevitably have a fit in the comments. So this is one title that I am very fond of. No, it's not Minecraft, but it looks very similar. This is a game called Vintage Story. It is much in the same style as Minecraft, but a little bit more in depth in its base form. So you'll see it's running reasonably well. We're averaging between 40 and 60 FPS. If we open up the settings here, you'll see it's sometimes a bit more than 60, but that 50 to 60 FPS range, it varies quite a bit. So it is a little bit on the stuttery side, but it does run, and this is a fairly slow-paced game. So it's really kind of fine for this. So just do a little bit of running around here, and it seems okay. And in our little village that we've built up, this is a more taxing area than most because we got some machines and windmills and things going, which do put a little bit more load on your system. So this is really a reasonable result. I have the graphics turned down quite a bit, but even with them turned down, I'd say this looks pretty good. This game's, even with its graphics turned down, is still a bit more difficult to run than Minecraft. I have also tested Minecraft on this system, and it performs somewhere in the same range, so around the 60 FPS mark, which is not bad. So as you can see, Half-Life 2 is running beautifully on this system, as you would expect. With a decently powerful NVIDIA graphics card in here, this is working fine. And this is a pretty old game at this point, so you would expect it to run pretty good on a system like this. So really anything along this sort of graphical requirements or something reasonably older games and such should run pretty well on here. Again, not a gaming system, but for some older classics like this is perfectly adequate for playing them. So yeah, it's not a bad little system for doing a little bit of retro gaming. So in conclusion, this machine is still fully capable of running pretty much any of your basic office type applications. A little bit of light video editing is no match for it, and even some light gaming if you stick to some older titles and less demanding titles. So if you can pick one of these up cheaply, I think they're a great laptop. And they're very upgradable and serviceable. Pretty much everything can be swapped out minus the CPU, so that's always nice to see. I wish it had a socketed CPU, but that's pretty much completely gone by the wayside, unfortunately, by now. On at least these lower tier laptops, you really only see that in really high-end stuff now. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, taking just a quick little look here at this machine. And please do stay tuned for the next video where we'll be doing an upgrade to the battery on here, as well as installing the new docking station and setup for that. So yeah, stay tuned for that, guys. And please do subscribe if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.